Good evening, everybody. My name is Jesse Smith. I'm Deputy County Administrator for Community Development here for Chesterfield County. Just wanted to start by thanking everyone, whether you're logged in virtually at home, streaming on Facebook, or watching it on YouTube, or here in person. So thank you guys for coming out. We're very excited to review this proposal for rezoning of the property better known as Upper Magnolia. Again, did want to remind folks that we are streaming live, so just keep that in mind, as you walk up and ask questions. And if you are watching on Facebook, you can post comments in the chat, and we will pull those and do our best to answer them at the conclusion of the presentation. This will also be posted, I think, tomorrow. Once Martin back there has a chance to get everything kind of sorted out. So if your friends did not have a chance to log in tonight or to attend in person, it will be available on the county's website. Couple logistics items. Steve Donahoe, our Assistant Director of Planning here, will give a brief presentation, after which we will have questions both from folks that are online as well as here in person. We are kindly asking you to limit your questions to 3 minutes, and we'll do our best to alternate between ones that are posted in the Facebook portal and the folks here in person. We're going to do our best to end at 8:30 tonight, just to be respectful of everyone's time, but certainly if anyone wants to set up a subsequent meeting, for example, if you're an HOA out there and you want us to come out and meet with your group individually, we will certainly do that. And also staff will be available to answer questions, if you want to stick around after the conclusion of the formal meeting. With that said, I did want to make a few introductions. So on the dais with me today, I have a couple of our elected officials. Kevin Carroll, who's your supervisor for the Matoaka District. Ryan Harder, who is with the school board. And then our appointed planning commissioner is Tommy Owens, who's sitting to the left of Mr. Carroll. And in our audience tonight, my boss, Dr. Joe Casey, who is the county administrator. So happy to have everybody here tonight. And Mr. Carroll, I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you, sir. So welcome to those who are here in person. I appreciate you taking the time to come down and give us your thoughts. And those who are online and watching at home, this is the second type community meeting that we've held on this. We held one to talk about the school site primarily in September. And, we have a lot of information tonight that's going to be presented. We're going to go through the presentation first. So if you have the ability to take notes and be prepared to ask questions later, that would be very helpful. As Jesse said, this is a beginning of a conversation, a continuation of a conversation that will allow for continued meetings and continued discussions. I've talked to many people on the phone that have called me. I've read all of the different emails. I've been reading some of the other online information as well. I know we've been getting emails with a list of questions that we've already had staff start to address, and we hope to have those answers. And certainly any answer that I hope we can answer most of the questions tonight. If for some reason there's a question that someone asked that we don't readily have the information available, we'll get your contact information, and it'll be included with all the answers on all the questions that we put out. So don't want to hold it much further because we want to give others a chance to speak, and certainly you a chance to speak. And there's quite a bit of information to put out for the community. Right?
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. I'd like to thank everyone for inviting me out tonight to represent the school piece on this. As most of you are aware, there is a section of this that is going to be designated for school use. We're looking at a site where we will eventually have a middle school, high school, and an elementary school. Just here that I'm happy to be here to answer any questions that you might have, and likewise, I just want to let the ball get rolling. Mr. Owens, do you want to say anything?
Yes, it's great to be able to be here tonight. Due to a scheduling conflict, this last meeting back in September on the 21st was scheduled alongside of when the Planning Commission meeting was, so I unfortunately missed being here for that meeting, but I'm looking forward to hearing from the public tonight and hearing the presentation coming from Planning.
And with that, we'll ask Steve Donahoe to go ahead and go through the presentation. I would also like to note that all the information that you see here tonight, the presentation, the zoning application itself, Steve will have a link that he includes in there where you can go. That'll be the repository for where we keep all of this information. You'll hear some things like traffic analysis. Those sorts of things will also be located there. So without any further ado, I'll pass it over to Steve.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for attending this evening's community meeting. I'm Steve Donahoe. I'm one of the assistant directors here in the planning department. I'm also serving as the case manager for this Upper Magnolia Green project. This evening, we are here to share with the community an update to the Upper Magnolia Green project that was first introduced back in September to the community. Of course, we're eager to share the proposal and to get the feedback from the community, and of course, look to incorporate as much as we can from that public input into this case as we develop its final product before we go forward to the public hearings. Just to back up a little bit, I just wanted to review kind of where we've been. The county purchased this property, the majority of the property that's incorporated in this zoning case, roughly about a year ago. For the purposes of helping to control development in this part of the county, as well as pursuing future economic development goals and opportunities to create jobs that would be closer to where people live in the county. The overall project is roughly 2,428 acres, and this is one project. It's organized into two different zoning cases. However, they're companion zoning cases, and together they are Upper Magnolia East, which is the residential portion, which I'll go into shortly, as well as Upper Magnolia West. So just to take a look at the initiation process, the county initiated the rezoning of this project back in September of this year. Let me back up, actually. This is, in addition to the first part, which was the purchase about a year ago, we've been working towards the next step, which is the entitlement process, the initiation of the 1,850 acres, which is the area in red. That was in September. And then the area in green was added, which is roughly 589 acres in October. So together, this makes up the entirety of the project area. I've included this slide here to orient everyone as to the Upper Magnolia Green and how it's distinguished from the Lower Magnolia Green area. These two projects, or these two areas, were zoned together back in 1991. The right-of-way for Poway Parkway was established as part of that case. As you can see, Poway Parkway kind of goes through the majority of the Upper Magnolia Green site, and these two properties have developed, or haven't developed concurrently. Obviously, we've had the construction of Lower Magnolia Green, but what's to become of the northern Upper Magnolia Green area, we're looking to address in this zoning application. So this is the rezoning map that shows the extent of both Upper Magnolia West and Upper Magnolia East. The area in orange is the east. That is the residential piece, and the area in blue, that's the larger of the two. That's 1,728 acres. The area in orange is roughly 700 acres. This map shows the greater context of the area, as well as showing kind of the surrounding communities along Otterdale, as well as Woolridge, and then to the south you have, of course, Magnolia Green. And again, want to point out here the right-of-way that we have that courses through the middle of the Upper Magnolia Green property. As you can see, that it extends further northward to connect ultimately, but is ultimately with where the terminus of Poway Parkway is today. However, the outside of the boundaries of this zoning case, it's obviously outside of of what's being addressed in this particular project. So what is being proposed? Planning has worked with economic development to determine what the appropriate uses would be in order to create an employment center in this location. What we have is 1,728 acres going from R9 in agricultural to I2, which is a general industrial zoning district, ultimately to develop what we're calling a technology village. We want, of course, this to be an employment center. We envision advanced manufacturing being a component, research and development, office, of course, and then we would expect to have some limited amount of commercial uses that would be supportive, as well as the public facilities that would be necessary to support the development of that portion of the project. One of the things I wanted to point out is that this list is the permitted use list that we have proposed that we're ultimately going to have proffered in this Upper Magnolia West project. So there's not a lot of uses here, as you can see. We're being fairly prescriptive. We wanted to do, in working with economic development, is identify the uses that would help to create this employment center, but what we wanted to do is make sure that we're using the least intensive zoning district in order to make that happen. So that's the exercise we went through. That's where we arrived at these permitted uses and this limited list of permitted uses that would then be implemented by the I-2 zoning district. So on the Upper Magnolia East side, we have public facilities and residential being proposed. This is a 700-acre piece. Also R9 and agricultural going to R15 on this side. So that's a residential zoning district. It's a 15,000 square foot lot zoning district. But the exciting part of this is the 200 acres or up to 200 acres of a public use site, which would be the site for multiple schools to be laid out on this piece, as well as potentially a library. So that is obviously a very important part of this project overall. The density, when you back out the 200 acres from the 700, is roughly 1.2 dwelling units per acre. That's fairly low density residential. It's less dense than the communities along Otterdale as well as along Woolridge. And then it's also less dense than the proposed Cold Creek project, which is just to the east of this Upper Magnolia East boundary, which would be roughly about 1.47 dwelling units per acre. And then the proposed park at Cold Creek, which is an age-restricted development, that would be roughly 2 dwelling units per acre. So the idea is we're transitioning to less dense development as you head further west. Okay, so what does the comprehensive plans provide us in terms of guidance for this area? The area on the east side is suburban residential 1. That is right in alignment with what we have for R15, being the implementing tool to conform with the plan. On the west side, we have the underlying suburban residential 1. However, we do have a hatched area you can see there that's shown as future growth area. We are relying on our guidance in the comprehensive plan for economic development. In particular, the plan is supportive of innovative development that with proposals including well-designed quality development that further economic development goals. That would be something that we'd look to see in this particular area. And these policies would typically be supportive of identifying and creating employment-generating uses that support growing job opportunities in the county. With that, this is a quickly growing portion of the county. It's this area here in purple where the site has outpaced the majority of the rest of the county as it relates to population growth. So one of the key concepts, again, going back to why we're doing this in the first place and creating employment centers closer to where people live, this is where people are moving to and have moved to for the past 10 years, but we do not have an employment center nearby. So what we're looking to do is create an employment center as we have in these other places where these red dots exist on this slide that would help to serve this particular area and be a job center for this part of the county. Of course, this contributes to a lot of other goals, living close to where you work, that type of thing. And overall, creating jobs in the county is, of course, something that I think we're all geared towards. The next slide, again, this is keeping with kind of taking a look at the existing conditions in the surrounding area. This is the existing land uses that we have today out in the area. Horner Park to the north of the site, all the area in green is either vacant or undeveloped to the north, west, and south. But you do have a fair amount of large lot residential in the yellow there that abuts the property to the west. There's also, as I mentioned before, the suburban style development in Lower Magnolia Green, as well as the communities along Otterdale and Woolridge. Just a review of the zoning districts that we have today. The area in orange, both Lower and Upper Magnolia Green, were, as I mentioned earlier, all zoned together in part of one 1991 zoning case, and that is R9. And then you have the agricultural that was added to it that is all part of the zoning request there, everything there in blue. So One of the questions I've received in the lead up to this community meeting was having to do with infrastructure, in particular road infrastructure. One of the questions was, do you have a plan? Does the county have a plan for infrastructure in this area? And the answer is absolutely. And we've had a thoroughfare plan now for a number of years. In fact, 1989 is when the thoroughfare plan was adopted by the county, which included what it is policy guidance for the road infrastructure for as the county develops per the land use designations that we have. Now, the land use or the alignment that you can see for the road network that goes through Upper Magnolia Green, you can see it's somewhat of a grid pattern in the Upper Magnolia Green West project. And then you have the extension of Westerly, as well as what is called a north-south road there in green on the Upper Magnolia East site. So these are all elements that are going to be implemented as part of this zoning case. Next, I want to touch on the Bikeways and Trails Plan. Not to confuse, what we have there is a dotted Powhite Parkway. We don't have a trail that's going to be going along with that. However, the green and the red areas that you see that are dotted lines, those are envisioned or constructed trails that we have. But obviously the area that goes through Upper Magnolia Green doesn't exist. What we're looking to do here is take the intent of this plan, and although we're changing the land use and ultimate development of what would go into the Upper Magnolia West piece, and look to make sure that we're realigning that in an appropriate fashion through the area where residential may be in Upper Magnolia East, with the ultimate intent of having a trail network that connects from Hull Street, or actually points south of Hull Street, all the way up to Horner Park and beyond. So that, again, things that we are addressing as part of the zoning case as well. This is the Magnolia Green approved master plan. I mentioned this was approved in 1991. A few things to point out here. The area in yellow, that shows the amount of suburban style residential that is contemplated and actually permitted today. That's where the extent of that residential development could go. One of the things that I also like to point out is that the road network that was approved in 1991. So we had a thoroughfare plan from 1989, and we have this master plan that was approved in 1991. But this includes the Powhite Parkway alignment, which is going right through the middle of the property, and it remains there as it relates to this project. So provide a little historical context to the infrastructure plans that we've had on the books for quite some time. Again, this just kind of reiterates that this is a page of the site plan that for the entirety of Lower Magnolia Green, which shows kind of what could come of the Upper Magnolia Green site. And of course, you have Powhite Parkway going through there. You have the north-south road, and then the extension of Westerly Parkway. And so, just to point out where these things are, this is the north-south road I was talking about before, and this is right here, the extension of Westerly Parkway. Want to make sure I was able to use that. I like that. Okay. Next, the next slide would be the conceptual plan that we have for the Upper Magnolia West site. What we're doing here, since the county is the applicant, we are proffering what we would like to see in this project. So that's one of the benefits of holding this community meeting. We can hear more about what the community would like to see. But what we have so far, and based on the feedback we've gotten to date, is we know for sure we want to somewhat insulate this Upper Magnolia West site from the surrounding development to the west. There's obviously dissimilar zoning districts. We have agricultural primarily that surrounds the property. So we do have a 100-foot vegetative buffer abutting the industrial or the I-2 zone property, and that's to everything on the north, west, and south. And of course, there's opportunity to expand that if need be. And then we have a 200-foot vegetative buffer along Powhite Parkway. Now, one of the benefits of this site having mature tree stands is we would be able to have a vegetative buffer that has mature trees within it, and we'd supplement where we need to. However, there may not be a need to. We have the trees there for the buffer when we'd actually put that into place. Other features to create a technology village, we want to make sure that we would have coordinated landscaping, signage, that type of thing, as well as architectural standards that we'd want to have So we'd have consistent development in the community, or in this portion of the project. Another thing to point out, there may be a need for utilities to support what we have in this Upper Magnolia West portion. There might be a need for a water tower as well as a fire station in this part of the project overall. So for comparison's sake, what we've done as a county is we've taken a look at Meadowville Technology Park and the successes of that park and wanted to explore the positive things that we could take and attribute to this project. So that project was zoned to accommodate logistics, data centers, office, and of course other corporate investment opportunities. Some of those things we certainly want to have here. So in preparation for this project, we acknowledged the differences between Meadowville and this site and the different constraints that the two properties have. And we wanted to be responsive of that. So as an example of how these properties differ, we looked at the use, warehouse, distribution, fulfillment as something that might not be a great fit for this particular area as a principal use. So we've gone ahead and restricted that use as being something that would not be permitted as a principal use on the property. But other successes, things like the building construction that we've had in Meadowville, these are a couple examples of that. This is the type of thing that we wanted to share with the community to show this is what we've had success in attracting to the community, and we look to have more of this type of thing in Upper Magnolia. Campus design, of course, is something we're looking to have in this project in creating this technology village. I've included some other examples from outside of the county of attractive light industrial building design or technology park building design. The building on the top right could be an attractive front to a data center building. And then on bottom there, I've shown an image of a property that's it's a business technology business park, and it has a research and development facility as well as a Class A office space adjoining more of a office flex type of development that has the loading bays, but those types of things are screened from right-of-ways and from surrounding properties. So we would look to have design standards that would be comparable to delivering a product such as this. I want to talk a little bit about transportation. What the county's done here is we did a traffic impact study that looked comprehensively at this area. As you can see, with the red dots there, those are intersections that we took a look at that are way outside of the bounds of the project itself. In fact, that's 20 intersections that we took a look at. And of course, this resulted in a number of recommendations, a list of transportation improvements for recommendations, all of which are going to be addressed in these proffers. And so that is certainly, again, a benefit of the county going through this rezoning project. Us being the applicant, these are things we've identified through our study and we're going to be including in the proffered improvements. And so not to go into these in detail, but just to show folks that we have a lengthy list of improvements that we are aware that with the development of Upper Magnolia West, we're going to have to do these things. And this is going to result in significant infrastructure improvements. And then we've done the same exercise for Upper Magnolia East. The initial development of the middle school will be something that we've kind of pulled out here just to show how that would be needed, or what would be needed associated with that. And so this speaks to the extension of Westerly Parkway as well as that north-south road that I mentioned earlier. So the conceptual plan for Upper Magnolia East, this is the residential piece. As I mentioned, we have a 200-foot buffer on the Upper Magnolia West site along Poway Parkway. We're looking to do the same thing here. The areas in green are those R15 neighborhoods that we're looking to develop. They are outside of the main environmental encumbrances that we have that course through the property. So the whole idea would be responsive to those features that exist on this portion of the property. We are going to, as I mentioned, these are 15,000 square foot lots. It's R15. It's a max cap of 600 units for this side of the project. And then, of course, the big one is that we have upwards of 200 acres of a future school site right there. and that is obviously a very important piece of this. Going back to the trails discussion and realignment of trails, the black lines that go through this property. Let me show you the zoom in here. The black lines that go through this property look to connect the different neighborhoods that would be developed across the environmental areas and ultimately connect to the public use site, which is the school site, and then, of course, to points northward, ultimately up to Horner Park. We want to make sure that connection is something that we are able to achieve. And then this is a preliminary design of how the public use site could accommodate all of the things that we would love to see there. So first off, the middle school, there's a high school, elementary school, all the associated ball fields, and a library. So there's a lot there. Can it fit on this property? Yes, that's the purpose of showing this preliminary design. And then, and so this is obviously an exciting element of the project, and the county has listened to the needs in the community and are now delivering the schools piece, which is substantial. So the project takeaways for me, at least, I think this project accomplishes these three goals. First off, we're reducing the number of already entitled residential lots. The property for Upper Magnolia Green today is entitled for 1,400 residential lots. This is being, again, as I mentioned, a cap of 600 units, 600 lots. It's an 800 lot reduction. Secondly, the project prepares the zoning for this property so that the employment investment in this area can be accomplished without the disincentive of a future applicant-sponsored rezoning application, and that's a big deal. And when you have, obviously, we're going to be promoting jobs in this area, so job creation, obviously, that would contribute to the non-residential tax base, all positives there. And then lastly, on the last slide, the delivery of a school site is substantial. So thanks for hanging in there with all those slides that I just went through. There will be additional opportunities to provide comment as we work to improve this project. In fact, next week we're going to be doing a briefing with the Planning Commission. So anything that comes of this evening's questions that might need some additional research, I'm happy to do that and provide that in the update to the Planning Commission next week as we prepare for the public hearings in the months to come. So here's the website as well. Please use this as well as my contact information. I'd be happy to take any calls or emails. And with that, I'll wrap.
Thanks, Steve. No, great presentation. I think that's a very nice summary. I think if there are any takeaways, it's really that second to last slide, which is, the goal here is to really create a employment center out in this part of the county. Because as I think on the third or fourth slide showed, we're really lacking in that. And then the second part is near and dear to my good friend to the left, which is to provide area for public facilities, and specifically schools, which we all recognize are under some pressures out in this particular area of the county. So if you take anything away from that presentation, it's that's the goal, is to provide public facilities as well as job opportunities in this part of the county.
I think there may be some people, as they come up and ask questions, who may want to revisit some of the slides, so make sure someone's ready to perhaps bring one of the slides back up as questions arise.
Can we go ahead and take 2 minutes and actually look at two of those slides we kind of went through really quick? It's around in the 20s. It's the two slides that had the road improvements on it. If we could just take like a minute on each one of those to just kind of put them up so the people online and the people in the room can get a chance to review them. We kind of went through those kind of quick. So the next slide, please. Next slide. There. Let's go back. All right, go up one more. The east. Let's just let's spend a minute on this slide, give everybody a chance to kind of look through it.
And Tommy, what we will do with this as well is, again, we'll load all this up to that project website, including some of the background. If you really want to dive into some traffic engineering, we'll have that information available to you. It's in draft form right now. We're still doing a few things relative to the formatting of the report and some of the tweaking to make it a little more digestible for for folks that are out there. But that will also be posted. And if you want to really dive into this even after tonight's meeting, we have both Brent Epps, who's our transportation director, and Chessa Walker over here as well. They'll be happy to talk through that too. And again, if you want to set up, this is honestly the most complicated part of the zoning. So to the degree you want us to come out and have a meeting with you separately, we are also happy to do that.
Flip to the other one. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so if you're in the audience and you have a question, if you don't mind lining up on either side, there's the yellow dots there to ensure adequate spacing. And while you're doing that, if it's okay, Mr. Carroll, I'll go ahead and start addressing some of the questions that were posted in the online form. So the first question is, will you be releasing the zoning applications to the public so we can review them? That's what we covered tonight. We will post all of that information again to the website. If you have any questions about those specifics, please reach out to Mr. Donahoe. He'll be happy to answer those. And I believe we also noted the zoning when the board initiated it as well back in September. But if there's any specific questions about that, certainly we can cover it. It looks like we have our first in-person question, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michael Lang. I live in the Westerly neighborhood. My family and I live less than a quarter mile from the boundary of the Upper Magnolia area. And I really appreciate this presentation. Thank you for sharing some of the details about the limitations of what could go in this I-2 zoning. You know, most of us who live in that area send our kids to Grange Hall Elementary School, which is next to a landfill. And every time we've asked about it, we've heard our hands are tied by a zoning decision from decades ago. What steps are being made to keep landfills or anything of the like in perpetuity from disrupting our enjoyment of our homes and our schools? Yes.
In relation to this project, if you looked at what the permitted uses were on the I-2, landfill is not going to be one of them. And I can tell you that there's not going to be a landfill on this property.
Yeah, and I'll simplify it even more. The list of uses that Steve showed, those are the only ones that are going to be permitted on the I-2 property. That's it.
And that's in perpetuity. There's no...
The zoning runs with the land. It doesn't expire. That's going to be it. So it was 8 uses and then I think 2 or 3 accessory uses. But yeah, those are the ones you would see. So the data center, office, and several that really were lumped into advanced manufacturing. Sure. So yeah, I think to the degree that folks have ideas on those uses, that's what we want to hear tonight. So I know there's some folks in the audience. If you see a list on there, you're like, we don't like that. That's what we need to know.
Sure, because looking at the I-2 zoning permitted uses, in general, we see things like gasoline storage of more than 25,000 gallons and natural gas storage, construction equipment, parking, and these are not things that we want near our schools. So thank you for that. I'll look into that further. And my second question is regarding, this being a draw for employment. I appreciate that. Frankly, I don't know any of my neighbors who are currently looking for a position, unless there's a research hospital or a university opening there as well. So is there a way that we could not have developments here in place until the Powhite Parkway extension is complete so that these job seekers will not be driving through neighborhood roads to get to these new employment centers?
In terms of completion of the Powhite Parkway, that is part of this zoning case. So again, I know it's a whole bulleted list of improvements, but certainly we do anticipate that completion of the Powhite Parkway will be necessary for complete development of Upper Magnolia West. So the question from there is, well, what happens in the interim? And that's really going to depend on the market and a variety of different things as to what ends up happening there. I think the focus should really be on, are these uses that we're listing here, and I think they're up now, are those the uses that the community wants to see on that particular property? From a county standpoint, we think these are in demand. They're very good uses in terms of employment, and they're desirable for a county from an employment perspective.
I think to answer your question, one of the things that would be desirable for this is if there was going to be construction entrances for people, for the construction of things in this area, we'd like to see it come on off of Hull Street. And not through the back roads, not through the back neighborhoods, not adding additional trucks to all these back roads that, if you looked at the list of what we need to improve, we know they already need to be improved. And so, no, I'm not in favor of, and certainly that's something we can add and take a look at adding to make sure. We did it with another case earlier where a construction entrance was specified for that particular development. And so, no, I think you make a good point.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and do one online. Go ahead and come on up, and we'll do it as you're moving. The second one is, how many flyers did the county distribute about this community meeting? Why didn't you include residents from affected neighborhoods such as Westerly, Fox Creek, Summer Lake, and Magnolia Green? We did mail things out to the required adjacent properties. We did include the homeowners associations for those specific subdivisions. I did double check that. We don't have a way to confirm whether or not the HOAs themselves distributed that information. To kind of have a backstop, we also put this information, I know, heavily on social media, Facebook, Nextdoor, which is another application, and we also distributed it to, for example, Mr. Carroll's emailing list, as well as to anyone that has signed up to receive notifications from the county. So I would end with, if you have a chance, please sign in tonight. We will certainly make sure that you receive notices of future meetings. And if you're out there, on the interwebs listening now, please make sure that you sign up for notifications on the county's website so that we do have a way to get in touch with you.
Me? Okay. Hi, I'm Cammie Bennett. I live in Westerly. Some of you guys I've talked to already a couple times. A couple things that stood out to me was the biggest red flag to me so far, and correct me if I did not understand it properly, but I saw on the thing that there will be a suggestion for a 4-lane road on Westerly Parkway going out. That I can speak, I think I can very confidently speak for all my neighbors, that's just, it's just not even acceptable to us. Westerly Parkway, if you don't know, is a very quiet road right now. My own 7- and 8-year-old can ride their bikes ahead of me pretty far and go across the road with no worry. Our playground is literally right on basically the road. Our pool access is right there as well. And in terms of the quiet development, there's a lot of us who moved out there for not having a major highway. In essence, 4 lanes to me is quite a big road to go out. Another point to Westerly Parkway, if any of you guys have ever tried to take a left on coming out of Westerly Parkway onto Otterdale, or coming in on Otterdale to turn into Westerly, there's a huge hill and dip that frankly, I feel for a long time is already dangerous. And thinking about the amount of traffic for the school zones coming in, I think needs to be rectified and be a serious priority to be rectified because it's not really a safe. It's okay right now because there is so little traffic over the long expanse of time, but it's still pretty dangerous. At nighttime, if you're on Otterdale, you turn left onto Westerly, you can't see the car coming over the hill to turn the left till you're literally right on top of the hill. So I really encourage you guys that needs to be a major priority and investment. And we ask that, I think I can speak for our community, that we ask that we revisit this idea of Westerly Parkway. What I had spoken to Mr. Carroll and Mr. Harder about in the past was looking at prioritizing Duvall Road as a major entrance into the school zones, rather than having Westerly Parkway be the major entrance, which is in essence what the 4-way highway, what the priority is to me. So looking at Duvall Road and the road that, I don't know the name of that road will be, but the road that would connect from Duvall into the school zone, being that the major thing, because that wouldn't be right in the middle of a neighborhood where kids are riding their bikes. And if you've ever spent some time in Westerly, people ride their bikes, they walk, they exercise, run their dogs all the time. I mean, there's kids everywhere. My other comment is you guys asked about what we want to see. I don't know if I'm speaking necessarily for everyone, but I definitely think I'm speaking for a lot of people that when we moved out to Mosley, we moved out there with a purpose, an idea that we would have this quiet community with not a huge development. Now, I will tell you from my perspective, I move out into an area, being in Chesterfield for 18 years, I am not dumb. I knew that there was going to be development. But my hope was that the goal was to keep it kind of quiet, smaller neighborhoods, more integrated neighborhoods, because the small town feel that Mosley is really unbelievable. My roots come from Northern Virginia.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay,
That's
sorry.
okay.
Anyways, my vision is is that I asked you guys to think about creating more of a town feel for Mosley, using that area for maybe small town feel, small town city center, maybe some small jobs, breweries, restaurants, things like that would be a mixed use development rather than huge technology parks. Thank you. Sorry.
Go ahead and do another one from the Facebook Live feed. If the next person wants to go ahead and start heading up, that'll work. Why was this lot of land purchased with taxpayer dollars under the guise of not putting in more subdivisions and bringing in jobs to now sell the land and allow it to have subdivisions put in? Again, the focus of this is absolutely to provide employment center and jobs. The Upper Magnolia property itself, under the current zoning, would permit 1,400 residential units. This proposal takes that down to under half at 600, and also obviously creates a much larger employment center than what is in the current zoning. So to the degree that the county's goal is to create jobs, that's what the goal of this is in this particular area.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Roddy Hogg, and I am a future resident of Magnolia Green. I'm actually moving there in about 3 months. And so this rezoning kind of came at an opportune time for me to come in and speak with you, so thank you for that. I do have some questions. I've looked at the plans, and one of the questions that I have relates to the I-2 classification area or the industrial area. I did read the standards on that, and one of the requirements for that standard is that there be an arterial roadway to feed an I-2 sector. I drove out here this evening from Hull Street, from Magnolia Green, and it took me 30 minutes to go 6 miles down Hull Street. I think we can all agree that during busy time that Hull Street today is busier than Broad Street is. And I work on Broad Street, so I drive them both, and it is busier in the evenings. So roadways is certainly a big priority. My question is this: if the I-2 zoning doesn't pass, does the Powhite extension still get constructed? And if so, when? If it's been in the plan since late 80s, when does it get built?
So to address the Powhite extension, yes, it's been on the plan since 1989. We do own the majority of the right-of-way for the Powhite Parkway extension from its current terminus, there at Charter Colony, all the way out to here. Absent there being some sort of large traffic need at the end of it, whether it's an employment center or something else, it would be hard to justify actually having it there. Whether it's done, whether it's PAYGO funding or whether you use some sort of toll to finance it, you would need the traffic on the road to justify the investment. So, absent there being something large at the end of it, it would likely be some time before you actually saw it constructed.
Okay. One follow-up question to that, if I may. So I think you've made the point that that section of Chesterfield is one of the fastest growing sections of Chesterfield. Today, we do not have an industrial sector or work employment opportunities, as you would say, in that area. So I'd ask the question, then why do you think so many people are moving out there?
That. And the reason, quite frankly, everybody has their own reason for moving out there, whether it's because they wanted to live in the country, right? Everybody has their own reason. But years ago, this zoning was done, and now it's coming out of the ground, all at the same time. When you look at the amount of houses being built in Mag Green and Harper's Mill, both of those two neighborhoods alone, there's still 900 additional houses that are going to be built in Mag Green and over 750 houses in Harper's Mill, just those two neighborhoods. Chesterfield does have good school systems, so a lot of people want to come here for that. People do want to live, and as some people said, out in the country. They want to come for that. So there's a lot of different reasons why people move out here, and some of it also is opportunity that they're actually building houses out here. What if we didn't? Then they wouldn't be moving here. But these zoning cases were approved years ago, and now they're coming out of the ground, and yeah, we provide a really nice community in Chesterfield County for people to want to come and live in. And what we're trying to do here is trying to find a solution for the traffic problems that are now occurring in the western part of Hull Street, because I called this years ago when they built 288, that if you build it, they will come, and they have come. And if you live out there, and you don't yet, but everybody else who does, travel up and down Hull Street. You just said it yourself, 30 minutes to get through Hull Street to come through this way. We have to find a way to alleviate the traffic problem. So when this was designed years ago, this road was, in the Poet Parkway extension, was part of the reliever for all of this type of traffic that's going to be generated from this. Hull Street Road, as an example, needs to be widened further west. Probably should have been widened years ago, but it hasn't. And so that's part of what we're looking at in the long-term transportation plan now, is the way we can alleviate those issues as well. Someone came to me and asked me if we could put 5,500 houses up there. 5,500. Imagine what that would do to the road network out there if that was zoning. I had people complaining just a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, that they were going to put 400 units at Cosby. Trying to find a way to create jobs, because right now, as an example, and as another gentleman made a good point, that he doesn't need the job, he has one already, and certainly some of the people who've moved out there already have them. But a lot of people leave Chesterfield County every day to go work somewhere else, whether it be Henrico or Goochland or Richmond, and I've talked to a lot of them who have said the same thing. It's a 45-minute ride or an hour ride to get to work and back, and try and get off 288 in the evenings on the Hull Street. I didn't create this problem. Everybody else did. But we're trying to find a solution to fix it. And so instead of trying to put 5,500 houses up there, which I think would create an even bigger problem than what we have, trying to come up with some other uses. And it is important to get the public's input on this, and we may find some other uses that we didn't think of that could be really good out there. But one of the things we know for sure, 14,000 people moved out into the Matoka district in that section of the county in the last 10 years. And because those are the neighborhoods that are growing. Two fastest growing neighborhoods in the entire Richmond area in the last 2 years, Harper's Mill, Mag Green. Great neighborhoods, great schools. You know, the schools that we want to create here, when you talk about a campus where a kid could go to elementary school, middle school, and high school all in the same area and never have to move, never have to be bused or transported somewhere else. It's not easy, and we're limited when you look at the north and south corridors further east because of the lake. So we're trying to come up with something. This doesn't mean this is the absolute of what it's going to be. That's why we're having a public meeting. That's why we're glad everybody came out tonight. That's why we're glad everybody is online here. But you asked a good question, and I think you can get an answer from every individual that lives out there for a different reason, or maybe the same reason why they moved out there. But if it gets too congested out there, and people get tired of sitting in traffic, which I get emails on every day, then it's going to come to a point where people are not going to want to move out into western Chesterfield County because it's turned into worse than Northern Virginia. So that's what we're trying to address here. That's why we're trying to fix these roads, to add this main road, which right now Woolward's Road is going to get tied in to 288. And that will help as a reliever, and there's some other things that will help as a reliever, and that's why we're doing this huge traffic study. to determine how we can do this. But if the growth continues, even with just what's already built there, you're going to get to a choking point where people are going to go, yeah, I don't want to live there, there's too many people. But then, how do you fix the roads at that point for the people who live here? And that's mainly what we're trying to get to, is we're trying to find solutions to the problems that have been created through decades of approving development, and now it's all coming out of the ground at the same time. So you ask a great question. I think I understand. I lived out there for 15 years in Deer Run. I know why I moved out there. I get it. So I appreciate you coming, appreciate everybody coming. I'm going to shut up so we can get more answers for more questions that people have. But this is what we're trying to do. That's the whole purpose of this, and we look forward to any other suggestions that people have, quite frankly.
What's my time? That was my time. Okay, all right, great. All right, so you made a very good point about Orwood Road, and I'm familiar with that project as well. You're going to extend that out to 288, and when roughly will that happen?
I think we actually have that.
Brett, do you want to give the formal schedule on Woolridge and where that's anticipated, or if you just want to maybe shout a year of start construction?
We expect to start late next year.
Okay, it's in the works.
Late 23.
Yeah, so it's in the works.
Yes, sir. We
Yeah.
have formal design plans. We can
Yeah.
show all that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
so-
a matter of getting it out to
Right, so here's my point. There's other arterial options to that area. There is Woolridge, there is improvements to Otterdale. Those are all roads that feed that section, and improvements to those road sections would help as well. And I have one last question, then I'll leave you with this because my time is up. In the industrial space, do you already have clients that you're entertaining that might want to work in that area? Or is it, if we build it, they will come type of approach?
Yeah, we don't have anybody now. The idea is that, with the input of the community, we will make sure that we are seeking the folks that, number one, the county thinks is a good investment, and also the citizens think are good stewards as well. So.
Right, okay. Well, I think we all want to have a good work-life experience. It is near the lake community. I think that's one of the reasons that people want to live out that way. So they are looking for, and I won't speak for everyone, but I'll speak for myself, looking for quality of life. And if there's fear that this is going to change quality of life, then I'm not sure that that's going to necessarily sit very well with everyone. But nonetheless, thank you for your time, gentlemen. I appreciate it, and carry on. Thank you. Have a good night.
I'll read another online question while the next person is coming up. So did the county consider creating a mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly town center with light industrial, commercial, dining, retail for Upper Magnolia West? In terms of any sort of town center development, the better location from a planning perspective would be out towards Hull Street. For example, we've looked at, and I think Steve's going to quickly try to flip to the map, both locations at the potential intersection there of the Poi Parkway extension at Hull Street. It's shown kind of in a hatched bluish color as Cordley, or on the opposite side as a hatched purple color of regional mixed use. We feel those would be better fits for any sort of town center sort of development like that. Although you may also see some development like that across from where Cosby Village is now at the intersection of Hull Street and Otterdale. We've had folks submit zoning applications on that, over a decade ago, I think it was, looking to do similar development. So those are better fits for that from a planning perspective.
Hi, I'm Christina Goodpaster. I'm also a resident of Westerly. I also am a realtor in the area with Valentine Properties. We're based in Mosley, so we sell a lot of homes in these areas and talk to a lot of clients. My first question kind of tied into that. So why do you feel that a town center is better on Hull Street versus the other alternative of something more like a data center or something on Hull Street where there is already the infrastructure for something like that?
Sure, just from a rooftop perspective, when you look at, for example, just on that map, the number of rooftops in Lower Magnolia Green that would be necessary to support a town center, any sort of services, you're much, much closer to have better access there along to those rooftops along Whole Street in that particular section than you would, up where we're proposing or where Upper Mag West is, where again, we recognize that that's going to need to be a destination, and you're not really going to see any of those sort of service uses. So that's the main reasoning.
Even though 3 additional neighborhoods are going in there?
Again, they're still
into
not
the Upper Magnolia.
right. They're
Green
still not
area.
necessarily proximate to Upper Magnolia. Not like down on Hull Street where you have, thousands upon thousands of people within, a half a mile in terms of rooftops.
Okay. And then my second question was, has there been a study done with all the residents in the Moseley area on if there is a need for these types of jobs in the I-2 sector? I know just a lot of clients I've dealt with that move into these neighborhoods don't have jobs in the list of uses you had, so I was just curious if there has been a need determined.
Sure. I'll get with our economic development folks and see kind of where they are with benchmarking those sorts of issues. I will say and reiterate, Mr. Carroll's earlier statement that we do export thousands of folks on a daily basis, so it may not exactly be that they don't have that job, it's just that they have to have that job somewhere else. So in lieu of folks driving out to West Creek or Innsbrook or White Oak, our preference would be that those folks, for example, that live in Magnolia Green and currently do that, can just either bike or walk to the nearby Upper Magnolia Employment Center.
And do we think plastics manufacturing is one of those jobs that we export people to?
Again, plastics manufacturing is included in the list. Certainly would be interested to hear whether or not that's something that folks within this room feel is something that is desirable. But from an overall county perspective and a growth market perspective, that is one of those things that is, with the amount of plastics and other things that are in everyday items, is an expanding growth category. So, but we could get you more information on that.
And I know I hope I'm not just speaking for myself, but I definitely don't want a plastic manufacturing facility right next to one of the largest school campuses in Chesterfield. So just my perspective, but I'm assuming a lot of other people in the room feel the same way. So. Yeah, also, so obviously a lot of people out in Moseley are on well water past Westerly. Are utilities going to be addressed, for all of this?
Sure, so any of the uses out here will be on public water and wastewater is what's anticipated.
Okay, and then as far as the roads going west further into the Upper Magnolia Green area, how is safety going to be addressed for, all of the kids on Moseley Road that live on, a ton of acreage, and then this new industrial park is going to back right up to their properties where they're riding bikes up and down. 2 buses can hardly pass on that road right now. Like, how is things like that for those roads going to be addressed?
Sure. We could go through that in detail with you, but there are, within the conditions, we do envision, there's one of the laundry lists. We do, again, envision significant improvements to the roads out there. I think it's about the 9th or 10th bullet down. Moseley Road from Westerly Parkway to Skin Quarter Road would be improved to what we call a good 2-lane road. So in other words, it would have standard 11 or 12-foot lanes with 4-foot shoulders, so you don't have kind of what you're saying, which is 2 buses passing and hitting side view mirrors. So certainly understand that.
And will residents of, say, for instance, Moseley Road, just because I know 2 people that couldn't come tonight are building on that road because they wanted quiet and acreage for their kids, will they be involved in decisions like that or kept in the loop on traffic decisions and things like that for safety concerns?
Well, certainly this venue is, that's what the goal of this is to make sure that the community is informed of what we're looking to do out here. So if they're your friends, please pass along any of our information. We're happy to.
Will there be like subsequent meetings from this to?
Yes, so that's a very good question. So we do anticipate, again, I think Steve mentioned a presentation at the Planning Commission in January. We are looking to a January Planning Commission meeting as well. That would be a public hearing, and then a February board meeting. And a lot of that is, again, so that we can ensure that the school is permitted and moving in the time that it needs to be open in fall of '24, right?
We're looking at the fall of
And then I guess that leads me to my last question. So we're kind of meeting today to look at, you know, both west and east. Is there any way to prioritize the east decision and have additional community meetings about west if, you know, residents aren't all in agreement? Like, why are we rushing that portion when we don't even have anyone lined up for that area yet?
Yeah, so part of the goal of doing them both at the same time is number one, because they're actually tied together right now because they were included at the original 1991 Magnolia Green case, so it's important to unwind them together, if that makes sense. The other thing that is difficult to do is we want to make sure that we know what is going on Upper Mag West as we develop the campus on Upper Mag East. For example, when we start sizing water, wastewater lines, drainage, we want to make sure that that's done to accommodate whatever the future development is on the west. So it's important that we at least have some idea of what it is. The difference between the current zoning, which is, again, is 1,400 residential units, and you know, an employment center, those are two vastly different things from a water, wastewater usage standpoint, things like that. So that's why it's important to do them both at the same time.
Sounds good. I think I would just request that I would want to know if there's really an employment need, if residents from the whole area were studied needing jobs, you know, in these fields before we're just saying, oh, let's create the jobs when we don't even know that there's a need for them.
Sure, and we'll make a note to follow up with some of that and see what we can get from our economic development folks, and again, post all of that information to that website.
Thank you.
So I'll do another one from the social media portal while the next person is walking up. So is there a study on the impact of the creeks and wetland use for the developments on the area where residents have wells, and what is advanced manufacturing? So we do have a resource inventory for the property. I did reiterate, though, that we do anticipate all of this being on public water and wastewater. So from that standpoint, you should not see an impact on the drawdown within your wells if you have them. During the development process, we will get more granular into the environmental permitting relative to drainage. At that point, certainly would know more and be happy to discuss that and any impacts on wetlands, waters of the U.S., any of those things. In general, the guidance, both at the state and federal level, is to avoid and minimize those impacts the best you can. In terms of advanced manufacturing, what is that? I think we covered some of that, but it's a higher end manufacturing. I don't know if Steve or Steve have a better definition from our ordinance, or if there's anything you can add to that.
So yeah, it's a broad range of, you know, advanced manufacturing, but essentially innovative technologies and methodologies for improved competitiveness in manufacturing sectors. Basically, this would be, you know, production activities that depend on information, automation and computation software, sensing and kind of networking. It's basically high-tech manufacturing is kind of a general definition of what could fall into that category.
Okay, thanks, Steve. That's the end of that.
Can I follow up on that? So
yeah, go ahead.
We're not making widgets here. We're making like computers and high-tech items that are like electronics related.
That's the idea.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that.
It's good clarification.
Thank you. Gentlemen? I'm Rachel Beal. I'm a new homeowner in the Westerly community, and I came here tonight to be a voice for some of my neighbors that can't physically come out. Maggie, Carbs, hello, I see you. And also for some of my neighbors that, you know, are physically unable to participate, like the gentleman across my back property who's been there for 40 years and is disabled and just can't get on the internet with us tonight. So I also came here tonight to be a voice for public health. Some of my community members have spoken to that already. I studied public health at the Gilling School of Global Public Health at Chapel Hill, and without getting into all the mountain of publicly available research. Our country has a troubled history with big companies and manufacturing that either through ignorance or in some cases discreet malice harms the communities that they're a part of instead of being partners. I know economic development work is hard. There are two people close to me in my life who have done it and are currently doing it. And it's difficult and sometimes thankless, and you're not going to make everybody happy no matter what you do. So I acknowledge that, and I thank you for engaging in the process anyways. We need new revenues. We need to, in some ways, keep the community sustainable at least. So, I appreciate your efforts in that. But I would like to know what the plans are for working with community partners to hold them accountable. And that's clearly not a question you can answer definitively tonight, but we need to prevent future instances of so many catastrophes that have happened in our country, but DuPont is the first thing that comes to mind. A couple of weeks before the public notice went out, I saw on a news program just rehashing of DuPont's unfortunate history with Teflon, which was new technology, and unfortunately caused cancer rampant in the local communities where it was developed and manufactured. And we're still grappling with that today. A plastics manufacturer, as a public health student, gives me a little pause. And again, I know there are difficult decisions to make, but I want my children to be safe. I want to be able to have another child and not lose my own health and prevent that. I want my neighbor across my back property line to live a long, productive, healthy life. And I want my community members like Christina and Maggie and everyone else to be healthy and safe. And I know you want that too. So a question for tonight and a question I would like to hear in future public conversations is, who are these partners? What are we going to do to keep them accountable and good neighbors to us? I know my time is up because I'm timing myself. But I pose that as a general question that I'd like to see continued follow-up on. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And there's been several from Westerly. Again, if you guys want us to come out and meet with just Westerly because you guys are so proximate to this, we're certainly happy to take the team out there and meet with you guys at a time and location that's convenient for you all. So I did want to offer that as well.
Okay, thank you. Any general feedback on that question about?
Sure. Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. I mean, certainly, I have some background to that. I'm familiar with a lot of the same issues you're talking about. I will say, in general, we have very good corporate stewards here now in the county. Regulations have changed substantially. There's the whole concept of environmental justice, not harming disparate, localities, things like that. So there's a lot more regulation around it. But also, being someone who was born and raised here, I can say that we have the best of the best within county government here that will certainly look out for you, and we would want to make sure that whatever technology or whatever employment center is here has those same values.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that, and I'll certainly be back, and we'll continue the conversation. Before I leave, I know I'm running over. I'd like to point to Buncombe County, North Carolina, and the Asheville Economic Development Council is a particularly good example of working with technology if you need ideas about how to partner and keep it clean. Thank you.
All right, so I'll do a quick one from the internet again. So how are you planning to support the residential development with schools and infrastructure? I would imagine that these types of businesses would also need to have large trucks and vehicles passing through. How the roads be improved to safely allow this if approved. So again, I think this harkens back to the same slide that we keep showing. Yep, there it was. Go back one if you don't mind. So again, the slides after this describe lots of different improvements to existing roads, but I think the other part that maybe we didn't do a good job of pointing out is all these little dotted lines that are on here are roads that are expected to be constructed as development occurs in that particular area. So we certainly recognize that some of the existing roads out there, are just old farm to market roads that even if you improve them may not be adequate. That's why these dotted lines really form more of a grid network to allow vehicles and goods and services to move back and forth. So it's really through a combination of new roads and improving existing roads.
Hi, good evening. My name is Anita Spain, and I am a Westerly resident. And I'm here today. First, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak and ask questions. I understand that this plan was approved years ago, 1991, I heard in the slides. And yes, it was approved, but things change. You know, people grow, environment also change. So I was wondering, I never heard in the presentation anything about environmental standards for the West Upper Magnolia development that is getting discussed. So, and also I think there's a lot of others miscellaneous like big gray areas. I certainly don't want to have manufacturing of plastic products or a warehouse or a manufacturer of chips or computers, because I moved there for tranquility, for quality of life, like it was mentioned before. So if these plans were approved in 1991, it's years ago. So it should be also uploaded, or, you know, you need to hear the opinion of the residents who live there. It said, so that's my first question. Is it gonna be any information more about environmental standards and more detail about the manufacturers, especially, that we are now looking forward to it?
So from an environmental perspective, this property is located in the Upper Swift Creek watershed. As most of you know, that means it drains to the Swift Creek Reservoir. So this has the most stringent environmental regulations of any location within the county. And those are codified in our ordinance. We can certainly call those out and, again, put those on the webpage. But it is the most stringent environmental regulations we have from a stormwater perspective. In terms of, you know, other employment uses and whatever, you know, may be located there, that's going to differ. But any business or employment use that is located there is going to be, again, expected to meet the highest of standards relative to that, because that's the county's commitment as well.
Jesse, if I could add something to that. So you live in Westerly.
Yes, sir.
How long have you lived there?
3 years.
Did you get flooded in a couple of years ago?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, couldn't get out, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
But that's regarding to the road, nothing related to manufacturing.
Well, it's actually tied into your question that you asked about the environment. So right now, with the creeks the way they are, there is no mitigation to slow down the flow of water as it enters the creeks from this big tract of land. And so when that water just free flows and hits the creeks, that's how we ended up with a 700-year flood, because there is no retention ponds or retention measures to slow the flow of water down. Now, we're going to fix Otterdale Road. We have $25 million set aside to fix Horsepen Creek. We're going to raise the road up 8 feet. And widen it so that it'll be safe for people to traverse. We're going to raise Blackman Creek up. We're going to put a new bridge, widen that. And we're going to also fix Otterdale Branch Creek, which is the real sharp turn at the bottom as you leave Westerly and go left to go north. When you get down the bottom, it's a really sharp turn. We're going to raise that up and straighten the road out.
Yeah, that's the project that it was approved. I'm aware of that.
Okay. But part of the runoff issue that you have here, quite frankly, is that there is no mitigating measures right now other than natural ground on the water. And so when we had those, the type of rain that we did, which was, I think, 10 inches in a short period of time, but that's not the only flood that we've had. We've also had other ones out there that they call the 100-year storms. So again, whatever goes up in there, whatever it might be, part of the goal is to retain the flow of that water so that it doesn't continue to flood out and create problems. Even if we certainly fix the roads, which would be great, we still don't want to have floods later on. I think the engineering is right that we shouldn't have the floods, but again, part of it is to also control the flow of the water on the environmental side.
So for the final decision, is it a date set, or after the next meeting, you will still have public meetings?
Sure. So the plan is for this to be considered by the Planning Commission at their meeting in January, and then to be considered by the Board of Supervisors in February. The board would be the decision-making body in that instance, relative to the rezoning.
Okay, thank you.
We've got a bunch still to catch up on, so if it's okay, I'm going to try to knock out a few of these real quick. So what is the commitment to green space? Again, I think Steve showed this on the plan. You know, as part of at least the east development, we do plan to retain a lot of the RPAs in green space. You can see that the trail system, we are certainly committed to both trails, bikeways, and trying to get that connected to Horner Park as part of that side. So recognize that, and then again, you'll have standard buffers off of resource protection areas throughout the rest of the development. What infrastructure improvements are you going to make to Skid Quarter Road, since this will have a significant impact? So certainly Skid Quarter is one of those where it is a very narrow old farm-to-market two-lane road, and so we recognize that even though it may not be a capacity issue per se, there may be a safety issue where we need to again, build that's more of the good two-lane road standard with shoulders.
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm Mike Uzel. Mr. Smith, you know me from the Megasite days. I wanted to just point out a few things about, number one, outreach to the community. Back in 2018, during the Megasite that was proposed for Southern Chesterfield, 6,000 notices were sent out to residents for the first meetings to notify them about this proposal. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you sent out nearly that many this time. Why not? I think residents in the area really need to know about this. I hear from you tonight that there was another meeting before this one about this proposal. Anyone in the audience here attend that other meeting, or
it wasn't about the proposal,
knew about it?
It was about the schools.
Yeah,
That's it. It was not divided into east and west at all.
it was about the schools. It wasn't about this proposal. So don't count that as the first meeting, please. So during the Megasite, there were a series of 6 meetings, community meetings, over an 8-month period. Can you give us a timeline on what's proposed this time? You just mentioned that you're going to try to get this to the Planning Commission in January. That's next month. And then to the Board of Supervisors in February. I think that's way too fast to be moving on this without the citizens being aware of it. The other thing about a timeline is I'd like to know what the timeline is as far as proposed timeline for development, as in east-west, I mean the Powhite extension. What comes first? What comes second? How do they tie together? You know, some timeline for people to know what might be coming down the road, so to speak. You know, will the residential be developed in conjunction with the industrial? Will the industrial be developed first? I understand there's no, just like the Megasite 3 years ago, there's no one waiting in the wings to come to this industrial site of 1,700 acres. So are you going to is that going to be just a shovel-ready site that you're going to develop at taxpayer expense? Or how is that going to work? Maybe I should stop there and let you answer some questions.
There was a lot of questions in there,
well,
so I'll try to address them the best that I can from memory. But yeah, in terms of the notification, you know, having lived through that particular process, I think what we found from sending specific notifications to 6,000 people, some of whom were, I think, a half a mile away. It really did not do a good job of portraying the impact of that particular case. And in some cases, even, when we talked to folks, they said, well, I don't understand why you even sent this to me. I'm, a mile away, or whatever the answer was. So we didn't want to unduly notify too many people and get them worked up. The other part of it is, having through there. So having done this for a while, I think we've also recognized the utility of the U.S. Postal Service is waiting. It's much more efficient. And obviously, again, everyone's here tonight, and I know there's lots of communications on social media and other avenues. To that degree, getting the information out electronically seems to work. So again, that's why we did it, and certainly relative to timeline, again, looking for the January Planning Commission, February board. In terms of timing of improvements, those are all really to be determined as the development continues, with the special exception of the improvements tied to the middle school. That's the one thing that has been included in the CIP that we're recognizing, is really at least half-baked in clay at this point. So we are going to meet those important deadlines, which this is a piece of. So again, in order to meet that deadline of being open by the fall of '24, this is an important part of that particular process. But those road improvements associated with that will also be outlined in the zoning case, and I think, in fact, they're on the next slide. We call them as improvements with the initial development parcels.
Okay. Well, your comment about not wanting to get people worked up, I can certainly understand that after your experience with the mega site, because people were worked up. And I think the reason they were worked up was because there was no transparency. And that's what's lacking so far from what I've heard here, too.
Mr. Uzel.
Yeah.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, thank you. I think you get the gist of what I'm saying.
All right, I'm going to read a couple more while Mr. Lohr makes his way up, if that's okay. Let's see, I'm trying to, I see you're changing the words from an industrial center to an employment center. Why is that? Are you not trying to change the zoning to industrial? So again, I think it's important to recognize that while the zoning classification is what we call I-2, it's really those handful of limited uses, and that's what we're referring to collectively as an employment center, is a grouping that would allow a data center, an office, laboratory, those uses that are listed there. So that's what we see as an employment center. Make sure I covered that one. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Phil Lohr, and I was part of the group with Mike Uzel that fought the Matulka mega site and have 15 years experience in zoning cases with the county. A couple of comments I'd like to make before I make questions. I'd like to reiterate what Mike said about how the way this is being pushed through at Christmas time and a lack of communication to the citizens in the area that are impacted. That was one of the biggest issues we had in the Matulka mega site, and I really don't want to see this repeated. I know, Mike, we said it many, many times to the EDA and to the board, be transparent. Get out, reach out to the people. Give them more information. Don't try to push it through in 2 months' time. That just isn't going to work, because you're going to get a lot of resistance, a lot of people that don't have exactly the information they need to have. A couple of questions I have about the phasing. So many of the developments in Chesterfield associated with the EDA and when there's commercial promised along with residential, the residential gets built right away, but commercial never comes. That could happen in this case. I really implore you to put strict phasing measures in place. Make the phasing measures dependent upon development of the infrastructure. If you don't have the infrastructure in the roads and the schools, don't allow the residential building. If you don't have the infrastructure on the commercial industrial side, don't put a large industrial site in. Too often these things aren't timed well, and all over the county we're just struggling with the roads and the traffic. You've got to stop doing that. You've got to start putting the infrastructure first. Understand what we're saying from citizens. We're fed up with being up to the neck with traffic and all these residential units and now some industrial units possibly. We want the roads fixed and the infrastructure and schools fixed.
And I think that's all fair, and that's the goal of this. Again, we have a detailed traffic impact analysis that will identify that, and there is a whole laundry list of improvements. And again, in terms of transparency, and I'll say this probably a handful more times, we are more than happy to come out and meet with anybody or sit down with anybody and go over all of this in painstaking detail if you want to do it. I know it's hard to engage kind of in this format, so again, that offer is there for anybody that wants to take it.
Another question is, Jesse, I've seen a whole list of road improvements that you intend to do, and I know the county's 20 years behind in funding for roads. So first of all, how are you going to get the money for all of these roads to provide the infrastructure? And who's going to pay for the roads in the residential area? Are we going to find the EDA again going in and putting the roads and water and sewers in to run to the western part to allow the developer in the eastern part not to pay for the cost of the sewer and water, which is very expensive, and that's an essential part of development, because if you put the roads and the water and sewer in for the western part, well, the developer in the eastern part is going to knock out 600 homes just like that, whether the rest of the roads are fixed or not. So I implore you to put in strict measures and also put proffers in a case that will prevent any more than 600 units. How many times have you had cases come before you in the last 3 or 4 or 6 months, a year? This board has approved over 10,000 residential units in less than 2 years it's been empowered. And you got probably another 10,000 in the pipe to come the next 2 years, so 20,000 more units when you're already 20 years behind in roads, and you're not addressing the infrastructure. Who's going to pay for the infrastructure in this particular case?
Mr.
Are the
Ward.
developers going to pay their fair share, or are we going to be stuck with the taxpayer paying it through the EDA again? Thank you.
We are running up on 8:30, so I'm going to grab one more of these, and if maybe you want to go ahead and start walking down, I'll try to knock some of these out pretty quickly. How quickly, again, a question about how do the roads get implemented in line with the development plans. And again, just like Mr. Lohr said, these, the way to address those is as a development occurs, absent there being anything to identify other, again, than the school, it's hard to say, but we'll have conditions that are written so that, for example, we have a maximum of 600 units in terms of residential, as well as requiring phasing of those improvements, so, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Garza. I think I'm the sole community member from Summer Lake here today. Lots from Westerly, but only me from Summer Lake. Oh, yay. Anyways, the two prior gentlemen beat me to the punch. There's a lot of, like you said, grandiose plans here that have been presented, but I haven't heard anything about timelines, funding, and cost. If we're going to move forward with these plans, I think all those things need to be thoroughly addressed to the community so that we know what we're paying for, what's costing us as taxpayer dollars, and when we can expect some of these coming changes to occur. I have been in some of the prior community meetings here regarding Mosley Elementary, listening in, I don't remember, about the Otterdale road improvements. And I've heard things like the Powhite Parkway is still another 10 years down the line from being developed or finished. I've heard that, the new educational campus going in behind our communities in Westerly and Summer Lake, we only have funding for the middle school, and the elementary school and the high school is at least 4, if not more years away and dependent on a bond. So again, a lot of grandiose plans, but not a lot of that we've heard concrete about how this is going to happen. So again, transparency would be key to that means. The other thing regarding communication absolutely needs to be improved. Summer Lake had its annual HOA meeting just a couple nights ago, and there were several residents there who are not on Facebook or on Nextdoor or any of those applications and had no idea about this. They don't travel down Otterdale or down Duvall. They didn't see the signs, no idea. Communication definitely needs to be improved to the affected residents of Western Chesterfield County. And then my last comment is, I sit here back here and I'm listening to, the plans for technology parks and the, vendors or the employers we want to bring in. I'm sitting here thinking, as an employer, what would attract me to this location if there's no amenities nearby for my employees to go to? There's no restaurants nearby for my employees to grab a quick lunch. There's no gas stations. There's not a bank. None of those things that you want, like these white-collar businesses that they expect to have for their employees. And I don't get a sense that that has been really thoroughly thought out yet, and it really should be addressed. That these are the types of employees that you're thinking about trying to bring to this location. Because to me, if I was an employer, I absolutely would say no. I want to be something closer to 288, 95, whatever. Not somewhere way out in rural Western Chesterfield County. So that's the end of my comments. Thank you very much for your time.
If you want, I could address the piece about schools really quick. So, yeah, currently the funding for the middle school and the rebuild of Fallen Creek Middle School is kind of happened simultaneously. So that is the priority. Tomahawk Creek and Bailey Bridge Middle Schools are both over capacity. And so that really is the need for our students in that area right now, and that's why we prioritize the middle school. The funding that we'll need to build the high school and the elementary school on that campus you're correct, it will come from the bond referendum, which will be something that'll be going out next year. But we, on the school side, we realize we see the growth just like the county does, and our high school that's out there as well, Cosby High School. My kids go to Cosby High School as well. I live in Harpers Mill, and so I see the growth too. Cosby, we're about 450 kids over really what the design capacity was, somewhere in that ballpark. So the high school is a priority, and another elementary school, because with Mosley opening, Mosley is going to open probably at about 90% capacity next year. And it won't take long until, that. And Winter Park, the students who were taken out of Winter Park and Grange Hall are going to be backfilled by the rest of the construction that'll be going on at Harpers Mill and everywhere else. So on the school side, we are keeping that moving, and a lot of discussion that we've had as far as the infrastructure on the roads and things of that nature are going to be happening. We're trying to have that happen ahead of time before the schools are open. But there was a very good point tonight that was made about Duvall Road as an entrance in opposed to Westerly Parkway.
My name's Ashley, and I live out in the Mosley area, not in the developments, because that's not why I moved to Western Chesterfield. I moved there for it to be a safe zone and for it to be quiet and to have a large piece of property and to enjoy what is not left in Chesterfield. My concerns, a lot of them have been touched on. Communication is a big one. How many people did you notify? How did you notify them? At what point did you notify them? Because as of yesterday, when I was here for the Board of Supervisors meeting, I was getting notice of people that were just getting their notices in the mail yesterday for today's meeting. So that is a huge problem. Another thing is we need more time. Because of the lack of communication from the county and the lack of awareness to the community, we need more time. To put this out there and ask for a vote in January, first of all, we're the week before Christmas right now. That's not appropriate. There's a lot of people that couldn't be here today because A, lack of time to be able to make arrangements for their children, and B, it's right before Christmas, they're taking care of stuff, and they're trying to make arrangements. And I feel like this was strategically placed in this for that. But that's my opinion. More time is needed. Desperately needed. More meetings. You yourself have offered up multiple meetings, multiple offers on meetings. Obviously, there's a need for that if you need to stop and say, hey, we will do this for you. But when are you going to do that with Christmas between now and the January meeting? So that's a big deal. Why are we pre-zoning this property? If we have no interest industrially, why are we pre-zoning this property? Because Mr. Carroll, we've had multiple conversations regarding the landfill, and a lot of the time your answer is, it was done years ago. There's nothing I can do about it. If I was in office, I wouldn't have let that go through. It was pre-zoned. Well, that's what we're doing right now, pre-zoning. So that's a problem. The specific types of businesses that are permitted. You guys keep repeating these computer manufacturing and all the lightweight stuff, but what about the machine shops? What about the pharmaceutical companies? What about the plastic manufacturing, the contractor storage? There's a lot of leakage and runoff and that kind of stuff. We're having a lot of problems with this landfill, and we're not getting any help because it's nobody else's fault. But we're not getting help. We suffer the stink. We suffer the trucks. We suffer constantly, and nobody's held responsible. So we're already having a problem with this industrial. Why are we going to be okay with something else? So focusing on the smaller stuff is not okay when this other stuff that is also followed by accessory to permitted use, whatever that means.
Ma'am, your 3 minutes are up.
All of that is a huge concern. And we live in Mosley because we like it, because we like the rural. We like the ability to be close enough, but not in the middle of it. And y'all are getting ready to put us all in the middle of it, and that's not what we moved here for, to pay a lot of taxes on. Thank you.
Before I address some of those, we are running right up at 8:30, and I would also be remiss if I did not thank the folks that are here making this all possible. So our deputies, the folks at the back doing the cameras, all of those. So I did want to publicly say thank you to those guys because, you know, we're all here, and you all out here too. We're all here, you know, 8:30 at night trying to talk through this. So I do want to reiterate that. I do appreciate that from both the community perspective and the folks that are working hard to be here. So in terms of meeting, it kind of goes part and parcel with that. And with my job, if you guys want to meet over the holidays, before work, after work, weekends, I'm certainly happy to do that. Yeah, I get that. I just want to reiterate that we're willing to work as hard as you guys want to make sure that you're getting the answers that you need. So if you have a question, we will certainly be there to answer that. So, well, and what I was going to say is these sorts of meetings logistically are very, very difficult. You have to realize we are not only here in person, but we're also doing this on Facebook, broadcasted to YouTube, Comcast, and Verizon all at the same time. So to make that happen is very difficult, but to the degree you all want to meet with, you know, me, the planning team, any of our transportation guys, engineers, I could bring a small group out almost any time you want to. It's just doing this, this is very difficult. So.
The tech center.
Okay. So again, happy to try to have those conversations with you afterwards and figure out the right spot that works for you. In terms of some of the uses on here, when it says accessory to permitted use, and I'll just use the contractor's office, shop, and storage yard. The idea is that during construction, some of those uses will be necessary. For example, when you have to rebuild roads and other things, those will be necessary uses to be out there. It's not as if we want to see, you know, 1,000 acres of contractor storage yards. So they have to be accessory to the permitted use. So that's what that means relative to those specific uses. And if it's okay, if we could just kind of end it with the last folks that have been standing here, and then we've got about 20 questions that are still online pending to be answered, and I would like to get those before or at least after the last person.
I want you to commit to more meetings for a longer amount of time. You've given us very little time. And I live on Duvall Road. I got a notice this time, but I didn't get a notice to the first meeting, so you cannot call that the first meeting. This is one meeting. And there are a lot of people online, at home, watching that have lists and lists and lists of questions. And there is a lot going on in the county, like so many people said, and we're not keeping up with infrastructure. We're not keeping up with the schools, and you're making the decisions about that, and you have school decisions, and you guys all have these planning decisions, and you're standing up here saying, well, I don't know why it's like that. We have to do this. We don't need to keep building in order to fix the problems that we have right now. Fix the roads first. Fix the schools. Let's do the school. Focus on the school. We don't want this big development out here. We don't need these. Nobody out there is sitting there asking for jobs. Those people are moving. You can't even buy a house. Where are the people who get these jobs going to live? You're going to have to build more houses, and you're going to say, I don't know. We have these jobs, and they need the houses. It's just the amount of lack of accountability here is so disgusting. We need roads. We need restaurants. Like they said, we don't have anywhere to eat out there. We drive into the city. So, Mr. Carroll, you told me that we need jobs. You're going to bring us jobs. We need to spend we waste our entertainment money in the city. We have nothing to do. You put thousands of houses out here and you want to give us a factory? That's not what we're asking for. You guys keep saying this is what you're asking for. This is not what we're asking for. So I'm just saying, please, 5 meetings where we get to tell you, and then you can hopefully not do any of those things, because that's not what we need out in Mosley. And then we all can work together to come up with something that will work. And slow your roll. We all moved out there to a rural area, and you're trying to overdevelop it. The problem with the schools is going to continue to happen as long as you keep approving housing projects. What, Cosby, that's your job, Mr. Carroll, to stop all this until this gets all caught up, and then slow down so we can have a rural area that we moved out to. Because y'all are gonna scare people away from this area, not us. The fact that this turns into a shopping center factory with houses and no entertainment, no character.
Ma'am, your 3 minutes are up.
I'll do one more online, and then I think we have the last in person, and then I'll try to go through the online questions. I will say, you know, if we can't get to all of them because they seem to be multiplying, we will certainly post answers to not just these, but also some of the other questions we've gotten online. I know that folks have emailed all of us, all the elected and appointed officials as well. So we do have those, and we'll put together concerted answers to those as well.
Hi, Tara Keevan, Westerly resident. Jesse, you and I spoke earlier today. First and foremost, let me say, as I told you on the phone, I would not want your job. Thank you. I appreciate what you're trying to do here, and I hope you're hearing what we're trying to say and taking it to heart. For me as a Westerly resident, seeing up on those slides that they're talking about a 4-lane road, much like Cammie said, my kids are up and down that road all day long. So for me, seeing that, in addition to the concerns I already had about the industrial zoning and where are these kids going to school with the new residential, I now am very concerned that you want to put a 4-lane road down the middle of my neighborhood. As others have said, I moved out there for the small town feel. And I hope you are hearing that that's what's important to us in Mosley, and that you will give us more time and more information so that we can development. I understand it's necessary and it's good, and hopefully it's going to save me some property taxes. So I'm not opposed to that. I just would like to see it done in a way that respects the spirit of Mosley and what's important to us and our communities. So that's my comment. I did, Jesse, I sent you an email. I was back there on behalf of Westerly and Summer Lake to set something up for us to meet. Thank you.
Yep, and happy to follow up on that. And again, thanks for coming tonight. So that'll end the in-person section. Mr. Carroll, if it's okay with you, I'll go through the remainder of these comments we've received through the portal, and I'll try not to duplicate any of them. There's a question about advanced manufacturing and what it does to the value of nearby homes. I think that's one we're going to have to talk to some of our real estate professionals and some of other folks to get you an answer on, but certainly we will follow up on that and post that answer to the web portal. Again, another question about the roads. I think we've covered that, but there is one that says, is it going to take 10 years for the Powhite extension to be completed? Yeah, that's certainly a fair number. Just to give you an idea of scale and scope, to complete the Powhite Parkway from its current endpoint all the way to Hull Street, we've ballparked at $700 million in terms of permitting and design and actual construction to do the whole thing. You know, I think probably 10 years is a fair ballpark number. So it is certainly not a light lift by any means. What's the buffer for Upper Magnolia West? It would be currently what we proposed is 100 feet off of the adjacent agricultural properties, and there would be a 200-foot buffer around all of the Powhite Parkway. You know, certainly we can take a look at that. Are there plans to widen Hull Street to 3 lanes? Yes, I think that was captured in some of the information we showed. It was widening to 3 lanes each way, or a total of 6 lanes. I think it was out to Beaver Bridge. So that was also part of it. again, another one around notification. So please, if you're here, sign up on the sign-in list. If you're at home, please sign up for notifications so we can get in touch with you. Another question about the timing. I think we've covered that relative to both the necessity for the middle school as well as ensuring that the zoning for Upper Magnolia West matches what could be put on the future property. Why put an interchange on Duvall Road and bring all of that traffic on smaller back roads? The interchange is actually planned for Woolridge, where it would extend through Lower Magnolia Green, and then, yep, there it is, the blue dot in the middle of the purple diamond is Woolridge Road, which would be constructed as part of Magnolia Green, and Steve is highlighting that with the cursor now. So thank you, Steve. Could the trail network be done first so we enjoy it instead of waiting for it to be one of the last projects? Again, the first project out of the gate is going to be the middle school. I think that's certainly a fair ask to see how much trail, sidewalk, pedestrian network we can do as part of that. So I'll certainly reach out to my counterparts over the school system. And also, I know we're doing some of the infrastructure on our end, so we'll see what we can do to make some of that a reality sooner rather than later. How tall will the buildings be allowed to be on the west side? So those would be no higher than what's currently allowed in the ordinance, which I'm trying to read through Steve's mask. What would be the height of buildings allowable?
Typically for a industrial project like that, it would be, no more than a 3 or 4 story structure, but we would allow for up to 150 feet in height for, particular towers or certain items. So with that, within a 1,700 acre area, along with the buffers, I don't think height's going to be that big of an issue.
Great, thanks, Andy. Where can I get a detailed map so I can see exactly what properties are being affected? Will it impact people's land and values? The maps that are with the zoning application are fairly detailed. We'll see if we can post something a little more detailed. If you have a specific address or something like that, please email us and we'll tell you where it is relative to that, or even can help you with another map. If you allow data centers, we'll use above ground power lines, or will they be buried? That's what I'm gonna have to follow up on. A lot of these, I know they want not only a reliable but also redundant power system. So I'm not a data center expert. I'll follow up with some folks that are, and we'll provide an answer to that. We'll provide all these answers in the web portal, and we will list all of these questions. Will infrastructure improvements be required in conjunction with Upper Magnolia West? The answer to that is a resounding yes. How will this plan impact the watershed shown in this image? Again, this is Upper Swift Creek watershed, so it has very stringent requirements. It will depend on what's being developed, but by and large, we'll have to make sure we meet all the Ches Bay water quantity and water quality requirements in addition to those that are unique to the Upper Swift Creek. What about Swift Creek Berry Farm? Our family feels like it's one of Chesterfield's highlights. Much rather have a family who operates a small farm than a technology park. So yeah, I've seen this on the internet a little bit. So the Berry Farm is located north of Genito Road. It's just to the top of this page. It does have a future Powhite Parkway alignment kind of running through the middle of it. We have actually, at least I have personally talked to the owners of the Berry Farm over the 20 years that I've worked here. The alignment uniquely misses all of the structures in the majority of the farm. We have had conversations with them, certainly happy to reach out to the folks that own and operate it again, and we would be happy to sit down with them. It's been a few years since I know I've talked to them, but I would weather to say that they're aware of that, and they have seen that before. How many businesses are planning to actually use office space and data centers going forward? Again, I think that's more of a general question around demand for this sort of employment, and we will follow up with our economic development folks and get that information. What about a hospital? Will there be a medical center for all those people that occupy the homes, as well as the community that's already there. Not currently proposing that a hospital be a permitted use within this particular district. There are also other hoops that hospitals have to go through, certificate of public need, which are very difficult and lengthy to obtain. So at this point, I'll kind of table that one, and maybe that's worthy of some additional follow-up relative to a hospital in this particular area, although not necessarily on this particular property. Will eminent domain be used to expand Duvall Road, or yeah, I'm not sure, or will it go against the land we currently own? In terms of eminent domain, that's always a last resort for the county. I can tell you from personal experience, we will go to excruciating lengths to accommodate landowners. Mr. Carroll will certainly require us to do that. I know personally that he will make sure we meet with folks and try to satisfy them before we even ask the board to consider that. So I'll say ballpark, 90% of our right-of-way dealings are done amicably. There are a few that we cannot reach either settlement or the heirs are unknown or it's some other property issue. But for the most part, we will make every effort to settle with folks in an amicable manner in a land acquisition. And I think I'm getting close to the end. Has a feasibility study been done to see what companies might be interested in this sort of technology park? Again, we will follow up with some of that information. And is this the highest, the best use? I think, again, those uses that we showed are the ones that we believe would generate the employment that the county is seeking, but we will provide some additional information on that. What is the ratio of employment opportunities to area Chesterfield residents from prior zoning changes? Is there data to support the live and work notation of the presentation, especially in the relation to the I-2 designation? Again, I think that's something that we owe the group some more information on, and we will follow up. Did I understand this correctly? If no industrial tech park, then no POET extension to Hull Street? Not entirely. I think that the gist of it is that the likelihood of that particular improvement getting funded increases as something large occurs at the end of it, whether it's a large residential development, whether it's a large technology park. Not to say that we don't need it to help out Hull Street, because we do, but in terms of the likelihood of getting funding, if you have a large technology park, that certainly increases your odds. And I've got folks telling me to mention again, the sign-up sheet is in the back of the room by the entrance, so please, if you have not, do sign in. Who is the engineer on this Magnolia project? We don't have one currently. The engineers doing the traffic study are here tonight, and they're from Kimley Horn. Other than that, most of this has been, I won't even say most, I'll say all of it has been done by county staff, other than the traffic engineering portion. There were some exhibits early on that Timmons has done. We do also have several engineers on staff, myself, Chessa, Brent, Matt Rembold, a whole group of them back here, so if there are specific engineering questions. When was it decided Saponi Road residents were getting public water and sewer? First we've heard of it. So again, this is not to say that there's any immediate plan to provide public water and sewer to Saponi Road, just that any technology park use out here, any of the uses, in fact, we would see having to use public water and sewer, recognizing that there is some additional infrastructure that would need to be provided. I live in the small section of Duvall Road between Skid Quarter and the Plan Road. How will this plan affect us? Will we connect to the road? Will we be cut off from Otterdale? This is probably one, I think we've got this person's name. We'll see if we can track down where exactly they are. And again, happy to meet with them in person. It's just very difficult to tell based off of that description. Could the county consider business parks more like Innsbrook or West Creek as employment opportunities?
Jesse, real quick.
Yes, sir.
You skipped this part, and that is that if the Poway Parkway extension goes through, we're not going to cut off any roads. We're not going to cut off, I guess, Duvall Road. It would go over, right? We're not going to split a road in half.
Yeah, so typically we would not necessarily, to your point, have an interchange at every road, but we would have an over or under bridge, something like that. We don't have those details yet, so certainly there are a variety of ways to do that, but our goal is not to isolate anyone for certain. the Innsbrook West Creek question, to some degree, I think that's what we're going for relative to intensity and appearance. With those limited uses, you don't have kind of what the traditional industrial opportunities would be considered. It's much less intense uses than I think, when usually people think of industrial. Will you be connecting to Horner Park, or is that just a small possibility? That is certainly part of the plan. We certainly have to hash some additional things out, but the goal is absolutely to get those trails up to the gem that is Horner Park, and frankly, an underutilized resource in that part of the county. How does fixing the flooding problem relate to I-2 zoning? Agree that road improvements are required. So the two are separate. The Otterdale road improvements are wrapping up procurement now and will start in the spring, I think is the goal. I got a thumbs up from Brent, so I got that one right. But I think, by talking through that, Mr. Carroll's point was that if we don't really look at all of these land uses, then that's the sort of thing that happens, is you end up with issues like that when you don't pre-plan and ensure that the zoning includes adequate infrastructure tied to development. And ultimately, that's what we hope to do here. A question about water supply. This area receives water primarily from the Swift Creek Reservoir. What is planned to maintain water stability outside of a tower? We do have plans or in the works for a fourth water supply, I'm proud to say. And we are also lucky that we do pull, we have 3 water supplies in the county. We pull from the north, the city of Richmond, as well as to the south from the Appomattox River Water Authority, of course, from Addison Evans, which is the Swift Creek Reservoir, and again, a fourth water supply, which we are in the early stages of designing now. So we are cognizant of those issues, and the good folks at Utilities have done a great job of forecasting and ensuring that we have adequate water supply. And that is actually the last question, and we are 4 minutes prior to 9, so I will stop talking, and Mr. Carroll, I'll let you close it out.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. It's important to hear what you have to say. We're going to take it all to heart. We've written down a lot of things. We have still a lot of questions to answer from both questions that have been emailed in, questions that have been generated tonight. I know that Mike and Phil have both given me a list of questions that I'll be giving to staff to work on. And again, feel free to contact us, and again, we'll come out for other meetings in your communities. And feel free to continue to send us suggestions. I think one of the things when someone points out to Winnsbrook or West Creek, that's an important point. Those type of jobs, because a lot of our people drive over there now to work. And so that's really what we're trying to look at when you talk about the quality of life for people. Some people drive an hour each way for work right now, and if we could move those jobs here, out west, they wouldn't have to do that. So that if they wanted to go to their child's recital, or they wanted to go pick their child up from school, or if they wanted to go have lunch with their child, or any other thing they need to do, right now they have to drive an hour away or 45 minutes and then fight traffic on the way back. And really, those are the kind of the things that we're trying to look at here, and to try and provide quality of life issues. And so I hear you loud and clear on the quality of life issues, absolutely do. Again, appreciate everybody coming out, and we're going to call the meeting, and I'll be around for other questions after. So thank you.